year for the symphony group. I've been asked, because I was the first conductor of the concert orchestra and I was here when it was all founded, that I might say a couple words. You know, I'm a little disturbed because Courtney sent me some pictures over the internet, some shots from the 1980s, and said, "Is this you?" I said, "Oh, come on." But when I look in the mirror, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get that." Right? But what I thought I'd talk about today is just quickly, you know, what defines us? Because at DMYS, there is an us that started this. And though we've changed through the years, you know, the us really hasn't. And some of the changes, I told the students yesterday, is that at the breaks, I would see the students practicing their kanji and special workbooks, learn their Chinese. There was always games of chess being played. Really, we didn't have bottled water, so there was lots of hot chocolate, and it did cause trouble for the second half of the rehearsals. It took a while. But it's an amazing journey. I was here for the 25th anniversary because my sons were playing in the ensemble at that time. We have children here on the stage, and on the early groups, the parents were in MYS. There's musicians in the group now whose teachers were in MYS that I had the fortune to teach. If you go to see the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, there'll be at least one member on that stage. Was the concert master for a while of the concert group here. And there'll be also former conductors. One of my concert masters here from the 80s became the conductor of the symphony group, and also just recently retired. I don't know what that's all about, but we'll let that go. And I've just recently given a concert where many of the pros were students in the very first orchestra back then. There's other changes too. You know, there wasn't Einheim 6. And I had to be careful going through Royal Oak because on our way to Southfield there was always the speed traps, you know. But we got through that. So it's you know, quite a legacy, and it started because there was very discontented parents with another local symphony, youth symphony, and through that experience, I could see what happens when a group of people get together with a lot of determination. And you know, they wanted certain things in the MYS. And one thing was they were, the top group wouldn't be allowed to cherry pick, because what happened in their ensemble that they were a little unhappy with is that the top conductor would take the best musicians from all the ensembles and stick them into the symphony group. So then the other ensembles suffered greatly because their talent pool was constantly being drained. And so they had the idea that there had to be a respect for all conductors. And when I listen to the other ensembles here, I have to tell you that though I feel very comfortable working in the symphony group, I have no idea how they produce music in those other ensembles. I'm very impressed. I'm just glad I don't have to do that. The other idea was that there would be open rehearsals, and that you know, parents wouldn't be cut off to see what's going on in rehearsals, so they would know. But the other thing I came across is the fact that the board was very interested in protecting the conductors, and that our job would be just to make music. And when you're a teacher like me in the public schools, well, you know, you do everything, including custodial work. This was quite a change. I thought it was a big shock. It was kind of nice. I think one of the biggest changes, though, is probably, it was a little more serious, I think, back then, because the idea of the orchestra was also to prepare people that were going to have careers in music. And maybe that's not quite so now, but we still have a seriousness in that we're working very hard and diligently to get through what we need to get through here. And so I think that, for me, I can define MYS, the us, that stayed the same, in four things. One would be the striving of excellence, the other would be the discipline, the other would be the failure, and the other would be the fun. And you know, the striving for excellence is what it's all about. And I think anyone that has a career and a good life knows that that's what you do in everything. And in music, that's what you have to do. It's just not good enough just to play through something. And that striving for excellence brings us to a very important thing we need to understand in our youth orchestras, is that's the idea that we butt up right against failure. When was the last time you heard a high school group perform Anthony of Cleopatra, or King Lear, or did any 8th graders decide to make a film after the style of Fellini or did you ever have a course where it was you needed to write like Charles Dickens? Do they take art classes and say, now we will create portraits in the style of Michelangelo? I don't think so. However, for a youth symphony, we're supposed to do Mozart and Beethoven and Mendelssohn, and they're right next to us here. And we want that extra added experience. My Lord, we're dealing with the greatest music possibly ever written. And so when we program as conductors, when we perform and practice as students, we're up against an ideal that's almost impossible. And that's the challenge. And that's what we get here on Saturday mornings. You know, there's that one adage that says, you know, only God can be perfect, but we can excel. So we excel knowing that we might fail, but our failures will be beautiful. And I think that's important to remember. And the other thing would then be, the final, would be fun. Because, you know what, I'm not going to tell you it's fun failing. Especially when I haven't given down to yet, okay? But it's what it's all about. You know, reading great literature can be inspiring and can be fun. I'm not one of these conductors that feel like there's some holiness going on in when you listen to Beethoven or you listen to Mozart or Tchaikovsky. I believe you're enjoying it as entertainment at the highest possible level. I don't read Charles Dickens because it's fun. I read it because it's enjoyment. And I find it fun because I'm striving to understand what was going on here. Something beyond myself. And that's where the fun comes in. So I would say there's a capital F for fun and a little f for fun. And I hope that we represent a capital F for fun. And I would have to say in closing that, you know, there's times when I'd be part of an organization and I feel very proud. But when it comes to DMYS, well, for God's sakes, I did this 40 years ago and I'm still here. And how can I put that into words? That I'm so happy to see us back after the pandemic with a nice crowd, beautiful musicians and children on stage. And when you leave today, you know, you didn't come here to just hear us do some fabulous piece of music. No, you came here to see your child excel. You came here to see your child enjoying great music. One of those goals you had planned when you first had them, you know, and you were raising them. And I hope that afterwards you're going to have a good meal and just rejoice in the nice family, the great music we're making here today. Thank you very much.